What's up guys, I'm Tap and this is my advanced Psylocke guide. If you don't know who I am, I came 5th, 6th in Ignite Stage 1. I stream on Twitch and on YouTube daily. Got rank 1 multiple times. Last season I had 4 accounts top 10. And I have made a Psylocke guide before. But since then, the game has developed. Personally, I learned new things and Psylocke's also been changed of course. Now Psylocke's an S tier duelist and she has been for some time now. I'll go over everything you need to know to actually get good at Psylocke. And if you don't know the basic numbers yet, please do watch my previous guide. It'll be linked in the description and also on your screen right now. It's a lot to talk about, so let's not waste any time and get right into it. Since my previous Psylocke guide, Psylocke's been changed quite a bit. The first change she received had to do with her ult. Before, she wouldn't target enemies that were shielded by Magneto's or Hulk's bubble, and so you'd kind of be sitting there waiting for it to run out. And that is just changed so that she now targets these bubbled players too, and it just hits the shield instead. This was initially perceived as a nerf to her ult, but in the higher elos this wasn't necessarily the case, as these bubbles were usually used reactively to the use of Psylocke ult. She then got her team up with magic removed and replaced by a team up with Emma, which turned out to be very strong. This team up is on a 30-second cooldown and turns Psylocke invisible for 1 second, while also creating a duplicate that shoots where Psylocke shoots. This duplicate lasts for 4 seconds, but can be shot for 150 damage, at which point it will disappear. The duplicate will do 20% of the damage Psylocke would normally output, and there are a few other facts you should know about this team-up ability. First, the duplicate Psylocke will match the movement of the original if you go forwards or backwards, but it mirrors left and right movement, so if you go left, the copy will go right and vice versa. Second, only the real Psylocke has the floating Luna snowflake above her head, which is a clear indicator of which one is the real one if you're fighting the enemy Psylocke. Third, the duplicate counts as a player and will therefore cause Bucky to get a reset for his ult if he marks it and kills it, or if he marks it and the team up runs out. You can use this team up to block damage for you, to deal extra damage during your combos, to deal a little extra damage during your ults, or as a second, shorter, invis cooldown when you don't have your E ability available to you, or if you'd rather hold on to it. I personally mainly use it for extra damage to make my combos more consistent, but it's a pretty versatile ability, so make sure not to forget about its other uses. The other changes Psylocke received were just straight up nerfs. Her mouse 2 shuriken return damage was changed from 14 to 12 per hit, and the invisibility duration of her E ability was reduced from 3 to 2 seconds. Here are my settings for Psylocke specifically. There isn't anything crazy in here. It is important to have jump bound to scroll wheel down or up for something we'll talk about later in this video. Okay, there are 2 Psylocke combos you need to know. This first one will kill 275 HP or less. You don't need to use your dash for it, you don't need to use your team up for it. And like I said, it's 275 HP or less, which means every single support, right? You can one-shot every single support. And all you need to do is you need to press mouse 1, mouse 2, mouse 2, mouse 1. Okay? You can do this a lot faster. The reason you're doing it in this order is because you can immediately recall your mouse 2 in between your 2 mouse 1s, right? Now, the limitation with this combo is that there is going to be a limited amount of range if you press mouse 2 instantly, right? If you leave it hanging and then you pull them back in, you're going to have a lot more range. So if you are further away, don't be hesitant to do mouse 1, mouse 2, mouse 1, mouse 2, okay? That's the first combo. Right? 275 HP or less kills. Now the other combo is more to kill Loki, specifically some other characters like Hela that you don't want to fight up front, who are 250 HP or less. I'm going to select Loki here. What you do is you walk up to them in Invis, you activate your team up, then you mouse 1, mouse 2, dash. This will always kill them. You don't need to hit any headshots, but it does require your dash and your team up. But it is faster, it's faster, okay? That's the idea. This character cannot press lamp. He doesn't know you're coming for him because you just walked up on him in Invis. This is the best counter to Loki, is to just combo him pre-fight and then press Q after whatever you need to do. So this is a second combo. The reason you need to use the team up is because, as you can see here, if you mouse 1, mouse 2, dash, it leaves him with about well, just a sliver of HP, so you don't kill them without the team up. Psylocke doesn't have a whole lot of tech, but there is one very important tech that you do need to know. This also works on some other heroes like Punisher and Iron Fist, and it's the bunny hop. This is why we bound our jump to scroll wheel down or up, wherever you chose, and the way to do it is you dash slightly upwards, And at the end of it, you just scroll wheel. And you'll keep the momentum of that dash. And you'll cross a lot of distance. This makes a ton of a difference. It increases your mobility a ton, which is super important for this hero. It also works with your ult if you press Q right before you land. Here's Psylocke's regular reach for comparison. There's a lot to think about when it comes to Psylocke's ultimate. The first thing you gotta think about is the enemy support ultimates. If they have Luna Cloak as their backline, and their Cloak has ult, right? Imagine this is a Cloak and this is the Luna. You try to double slash their Luna by only putting her in the circle of it, so that if the enemy Cloak messes up with his support ult, then you'll get a kill on the Luna, and you force a support ult this way. So it's like double the value. Second, you also gotta track abilities like Loki runes, Atom Soul Bond, and Cloak Bubble. You gotta be very familiar with how they work and what their cooldown timers are. Psylocke ult won't target Loki runes, so that ability is a direct counter, but Soul Bond relies on a lot of people being hit by it. So if it's just the supports being soul bonded and being hit by your ult, you ought to still kill them. For our example here, you have to track the Cloak Bubble, because if both supports are stacked in that Cloak Bubble and they heal each other while you're ulting them, they will just survive it. So you gotta get that cooldown out. Again, same thing here. If you put only one of the supports in your ult, you'll double slash that player, and you might need more than 2 slashes, but you will kill through those cooldowns, except for the Loki runes, of course. Third, sometimes you have the opportunity to make a target weak enough for your first Psylocke ult slash to kill. All you need to do is make the player 150 HP or less by the time that you actually press the button. You do this by either mouse 2 dash queuing or mouse 1 mouse 2 queuing. I'll show you the mouse 2 dash Q first. One slash will kill. And second is the mouse 1 mouse 2 Q. You actually only need to hit one of the 2 bursts from your mouse 1, right? It shoots 2. You only need to hit 1. And you don't need to press mouse 2 twice, as when you press right click and then you press Q, they actually recoil straight back to you. So again, first combo, right click dash Q. Very straightforward. Second one, mouse 1, mouse 2, Q. They both kill every support. You will kill every support this way. There are a couple support combinations that are hard to play into as Psylocke because it's going to be so hard to get your ult value. And one of these is Luna and Loki. Now Luna and Loki makes it near impossible for you to get good ults without killing the Loki first. Fortunately for us, Loki's 250 health, so all of our combos do one-shot him. And if you're fast enough, you won't have enough time to use his runes ability. And I do recommend that dash combo for that. If you can't seem to get on him, try to force his runes by pressuring him hard enough to the point he thinks he might die. If he doesn't use his ult right after getting his lamps forced, feel free to use your ult to force Luna ult or kill both the supports. If you're ever in a scenario where Loki uses ult before you force his runes, there's a 3-second window during which you'll be able to use ult, and he won't be able to use lamps right after his copy Luna ult runs out. The second support combination that is hard to play into as Psylocke is Cloak and Loki. Now, Cloak and Loki, they remove that beautiful 3-second window that we can exploit, because when using Cloak's ult, Loki's ult timer is only increased by 5 seconds, causing him to come out of the copied form before the Cloak ult ends. Now, because it's a little harder to get good ult value versus his backline, given the support players play it well, don't be afraid to use Psylocke's ult a little bit more leniently to win 1v1s or to clean up fights that you feel like should already be won but can still be turned. Now, this won't matter until the very high elo lobbies, but you very rarely want to overlap Psylocke's ult with one of your own support ults. If you start the fight with Cloak ult, for example, you don't want to use Psylocke ult to force a Luna ult, because your Cloak ult engage should already force their support ult in response. If you use Psylocke ult, it will cause the enemy team to use their support ult, but it'll be a 1-for-2 ult rate. So these are the fights where you end with Psylocke ult to cleanly wipe the enemy team at the end of the fight. Now, this is actually a very important concept to understand if you do play in these higher elo lobbies. because games are won or lost off of these plays and fights. The best way to use Psylocke ult, in my opinion, is to start the fight with it, to force a support ult, and maybe get a kill on top of that if they misplay and you play it well, which will then give you a longer support ult. Next to having the better or longer support ult, you will also be able to farm up more ult charge during the support ult standoff, and you'll usually be about halfway to your next ult by the end of this fight, if not more, and you can start this process over and over and keep the snowball rolling. There are two things you should think about during your ult. The first one might be obvious, but you have to think about who your ult will be targeting with every single slash, so that you can manipulate who gets hit, therefore optimize the damage on a desired target. Keep in mind that the player who has been hit the least will get hit by the next slash. Second, now I don't see enough Psylocke players do this, you gotta think about how you're going to live after your ult runs out. You'll be stuck in a state where you can't use any abilities for about half a second, so make sure you're not ending in front of Emma with grab or any other CC, and maybe think about whether you have dash available, but just make sure you can actually live after your ult. Here is a table of Psylocke ult versus every defensive support ult. It's important to know whether you're able to kill a support who has ult. This table shows every support ult being used before and after Psylocke ult is being used, and how many slashes it takes as well. I don't have much to say about it, but I do recommend taking a screenshot so it's easy to pull up later for personal use. There are a few other interesting Psylocke ult interactions that I would like to mention. Number 1 is that Psylocke ult will not target players on the other end of a strange portal, even though it may seem like you're right next to them. It will still target players who are physically on the other side, and it's also possible to go through strange portal while already in Psylocke ult if the portal is directly on the floor. Psylocke ult could also target destructible objects, but only if there are no players hittable in the ult. For example, Nomore is standing on top of his squids, gets Psylocke ulted, and decides to shift upwards. Your Psylocke ult will now target the squids if there are no other players in range. Here is every destructible object that can be hit by Psylocke ult, and how many slashes it takes to break them. Loki clones are also targeted by Psylocke ult, but every clone counts as an individual player, so these clones will get targeted even if there are hittable players in range. When coming out of Psylocke ult, there is a short time that seems like about half a second to me, where you can't use any abilities. So that's something that you should always keep in mind. And of course, remember that there is a cast time for Psylocke ult as well, so it is possible to die during the animation and lose all your ult charge. A fun fact is that you can use the jump pad during this cast time, but not during your ult. The general playstyle or idea of Psylocke. Playing in life is where it all starts. Whatever you do, do not die. With every play you make, you have to keep in mind that you've got to be able to live. Very rarely is it worth dying for a play, especially in ranked, but if you kill both supports before the fight starts and you die for it, we can let that slide of course. Step 2 is to punish people their mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes, even up to the highest elo, so there will always be something to exploit and win the game off. Mistakes are made by everyone, including myself, and the better your understanding of the game is, the easier it will be for you to recognize these mistakes, position yourself to punish these players, and then execute on it. This will make it so you can carry almost every ranked game, but it's easier said than done of course, and this is not something that you can just learn overnight. Psylocke is one of the most flexible characters in Marvel Rivals, and because Psylocke is so versatile that you can pick her nearly every ranked game, the real skill in playing Psylocke is knowing when to play each style. This changes dependent on both teams' compositions, the map design, but also what ults both teams have available to them each individual fight. There's a few things you should think about every single ranked game that will determine how you play those games and fights. I have a few guidelines and things to think about in every ranked game for you. The first thing to check is whether you have Luna Snowflake available to you. Snowflake allows you to do basically anything you like. With Snowflake, you're allowed to make a bunch of mistakes, you can maximize your uptime while being at low risk of getting poked out. It also allows you to never group up with your team and live in their backline off of Snowflake healing and health packs. Without Snowflake, you have to play a lot cleaner, pick your timings well, and you also won't be able to hold off angles well, as any poke damage usually forces you out unless you have a support helping you on the angle. If you don't have Snowflake, you gotta choose your timings wisely, and don't poke too much from the side unless you can get healed there. This sometimes means you have to hide, almost like Black Panther, before the fight starts. The second thing is, does the enemy team have any of these heroes? Hela, Hawkeye, Moon Knight, Iron Man, Ultron, or Storm? As these heroes are easy to kill as Psylocke, but you don't really want to fight them from up front. And if Hela or let's say Iron Man ever decides to go on a flank, it's your job to punish them by taking them out before they can get value off these flanks. The other heroes don't necessarily want to flank, but they do get passive value by playing from main, and because you kind of don't as Psylocke, you have to sort of make stuff happen. Picking these heroes into a good Psylocke player could be a mistake because of how easy it is to die to Psylocke, and so as the Psylocke, you can punish them by putting them high on your list of priority targets. Third, ask yourself, do I have a dive tank or second DPS to time my engages off? These are heroes like Venom, Captain America, or Iron Fist. If the answer is yes, and you keep an eye on these teammates, you can get a lot more done on Psylocke. Make sure you're ready to follow up on their plays, especially something like Venom's Slam, and you'll be guaranteed to get more impactful kills, especially on supports. Fourth, are you playing against Loki plus Luna or Cloak? This is important because of how hard it is to get ult value into these backline comps. Don't be afraid to use your ult more leniently in these games. Fifth, are you going to be marked by an enemy DPS like Bucky, Torch, or Namor? What I mean by getting marked is will any DPS on their team be trying to prevent you from getting on their supports? Bucky and Namor excel at this because they can stand basically on top of their supports and just shoot you as soon as you go in. Torch excels at this, given he has Flake or Team Up to keep him alive, because he can be anywhere on the map and can easily peel for his backline by slamming down on top of you, either while you're pathing towards the supports, or even when you actually reach them. You can outplay these characters by not giving away your location until you decide to strike, but if one of these duelists is paired with a backline like Loki plus Luna, or Loki plus Cloak, and you don't have any dive tanks to time your engages off, it might be a good idea to swap. This is the only time I personally don't play Psylocke after a fight or two of trying to outplay them, but fortunately Phoenix is out now and she's actually very good into these Loki compositions, and that is why Psylocke plus Phoenix is such a deadly hero pool this season. Last, should you actively be marking anyone yourself? This is arguably the toughest question to give a straight one-dimensional answer to. Frankly, if you are below Celestial, the answer for 9 out of 10 games will be no, don't mark anyone, don't overthink marking too much, and kill the right targets like Loki, like Hela, like Hawkeye, and of course punish players who are making mistakes. Ignore heroes like Black Panther, Magic, Spider-Man, and Iron Fist unless they are heavily supported by a complete dive tank line, Cap plus Venom, or if you run into them as you're pathing for your own place. Make sure not to fight any of these in small rooms, except for Spider-Man. Now, if you are Celestial or higher, it gets a little bit more complicated. Yes, you should mark players if you're against a complete dive comp and your Snowflake. Try to chase down any non-flake dive player off to Captain America or the enemy Psylocke, so that the enemy team can never get a clean dive engage off, and your team should be able to survive. Make sure that if you have your ultimate available to you, you don't get stuck marking these players, as you should be looking to get a good ult off, keeping in mind everything we went over earlier. If both teams are playing a dive composition, things can seem complicated, but whoever has the space and therefore doesn't need to fight anyone while pathing towards enemy supports can dive first and therefore should almost always take that opportunity. This is usually the team on the defending side or the team who's already in control of the objective if you're playing domination. Outside of who has the space and the better setup, you should also try to think about ults. If you just use your ult and you're sitting at like 20%, but you know the enemy Psylocke has ult already, and your supports don't actually have any support ults available to them, it might be a good idea to mark the enemy Psylocke for the time being. In conclusion, what I'm trying to say is that Psylocke can kind of do it all, and it's really just a matter of knowing when to do what. These are general guidelines, but developing higher levels of understanding of the game by playing the character a lot will level up your Psylocke game tremendously. It's impossible to explain everything there is to this character, but I do hope this video gives a good guideline and helps you think about the important stuff during your ranked games. I stream daily, so if anything was unclear, if I missed something, or if you have any questions that were left unanswered, don't be afraid to come to my Twitch or YouTube chat. And I want to thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys during the next stream, and good luck with your rank grinds.